Hey there, it's Cindy again. Welcome back. We just wrapped up Invoicing from Estimates Part 1. We actually went through and created an invoice based on an estimate. What I want to do now is go ahead and take you into Part 2. We're going to complete another invoice based on that estimate, and then we'll go over some of the options you have available when you're working with that invoice you've created. Let's go ahead and flip over to QuickBooks and we will continue with Part 2. I want to head back to the Customer Center. I still have it open on the left just to show you that we do have our estimate and then we have one invoice we created. What I want to do now is go ahead and create an invoice for whatever was left on that estimate because we've completed that job. And we'll just follow the same process. I'm going to go back to the home screen and choose Create Invoices. The first thing I want to do is pick my customer and my job. I'm going to pick Tom Allen's sunroom. It does tell me I have some available estimates. As long as you have even 1 penny left on that estimate, this window will pop up. You won't get this window for this customer and job once you've pulled everything from that estimate. But I'll go ahead and choose the estimate I'd like to pull from and click OK. And now I get my progress invoicing window again. One thing that's a little bit different from the first time we saw this is notice the first option now says create an invoice for the remaining amounts of the estimate, which is what I'm going to do. But I could choose another percentage, or if I want to pick selected items like we did with the first one, I could do that as well. I'm going to click OK here, and you can see that it pulled in whatever was left on that estimate that had not yet been invoiced. I'm just going to double check some of the options on the screen. I want to change the date. In this case, I'll say that it's January the 9th. Notice it does give me the next invoice number. My bill to information is correct. You want to make sure you check the terms and the due date. If you want to add anything to this, remember just click on the next line down and you can add anything you'd like to this invoice. You do have at the bottom your sales tax, your payments applied, and your balance due. We talked about all of that. Once you're finished, you can go ahead and save and close or save and new if you want to create a new one. Before I save and close, I want to go through some of the options that you have up under your tabs at the top of your window. These are options that pertain to this invoice. You're probably going to stay on the main tab most of the time, and some of these options you'll already be familiar with because you saw them when we actually created the estimate. But let's go back through these. The first thing you'll notice is you have the option to find. If you're looking for an invoice and you just can't find it using these arrows that go left or right, go ahead and click on the find option, and that way you can put in some search criteria and have QuickBooks search for you. Your next option is your new button. This allows you to create a new blank invoice. Remember, this is the exact same as coming down to the bottom of your screen and choosing Save and New. You do have the option to save this invoice. If it's taking a while and you have a lot of line items, you might want to save it at various points. Notice also that you can save this as a PDF just by clicking that down arrow. The next thing you'll see is the delete option. This is how you're going to delete this invoice. Notice when I click the down arrow, I also have an option to just void it. If I delete it, it's going to be gone, but if I void it, it will stay in QuickBooks and it will just say void across it with a 0 balance. If I wanted to create a copy of this, I could. I could also memorize this, and we'll talk about memorizing in a later module. Also, mark it as pending. Remember, if you mark something as pending, it's going to be in QuickBooks, but QuickBooks will not count it in your numbers. It could be that you set this up a little bit early and maybe you're not quite ready to send it out, but you don't want to delete it. You could leave it in here, and that way it's not part of your accounts receivable. You do have the option to print this. I want to show you a preview of what your invoices look like. I'll just click anywhere to zoom in a little bit. You can see that it has your company name and your address. You will want to customize this a little bit so that you have some more information here, possibly the telephone number, the email address. You'll notice over on the right it says invoice. There's a place for the date and the invoice number, and then all of the information that's on that invoice. Remember, you can customize this like I mentioned, and we'll do that in a later module. I'm going to hit the close button at the top, and that'll take me back. Now underneath print, there are a few other options. Here's where you can actually print that invoice out or print a batch. And what a batch means is, if you notice there's a checkbox here that says print later, if you've got several invoices created, the ones that have the check mark, if you choose the batch option, those will be printed. If you're going to be shipping items, here's where you can create a packing slip, a shipping label, or an envelope. These will do mail merges with Microsoft Word. And then notice you can also save this as a PDF file. You have the ability to email your forms in QuickBooks. If you want to email this invoice to your customer, you could just choose invoice here and that would let you email it. If you want to email the batch, all the ones that have the check mark that say email later would be included in that batch. Here you can attach a file. You might have some file that you've scanned in, or it's a file that you can access in your computer and actually attach to this. So that way you don't have to go out of QuickBooks and search for those files and open them up. They're right here. You do have an option to add your time and your cost. We'll actually talk about this over in the next video, which is video number 9, invoicing customers for products and services. So we'll hold that. And you can also apply credits. We'll hold that one as well and talk about those in the next video. And just to tell you what progress means, if you wanted to see a timeline of, I've estimated this job, I created an invoice, I received a payment, that would show you the progress. And you could see the progress too as to how much you've actually pulled from that estimate. Here's a way to receive a payment against this invoice. Chances are you're not going to be on this screen when you want to receive a payment, but you can do that. You can also create a batch. What that basically does is takes one invoice and allows you to send it to multiple customers. Maybe if you have 3 customers that are each going to pay a third, then you'd be able to send this to all 3. And there's also a place for a refund or credit, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in this module as well. I just wanted you to be familiar with those options because that's where you're going to find most of the things you'll use on a daily basis. We'll look at some of these other tabs when we get over into the next video as well. I just wanted to make sure here that you know how to actually pull all of the information from your estimates onto invoices. Once you're finished, go ahead and save and close. And that's how you're going to create your invoices based on estimates. Let's go ahead now and move over to video 9 in this module and talk about invoicing customers for products and services.